Sometimes, the people we love most can pass us by without ever knowing we were there. In today's story, Toan and Diem unknowingly cross paths in a hospital hallway, two lives brushing past without a glance. While Diem finds unexpected warmth and acceptance in Vuong's family home, Toan is drawn deeper into Mai Huong's carefully crafted world, meeting her parents and stepping into a future that feels less like choice and more like fate. As their hearts drift apart in silence, will they ever find their way back? Subscribe now and follow every turn of this unfolding journey. The hospital corridor gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights, the air filled with the sterile scent of antiseptic and the distant hum of machinery. Diem walked slowly, clutching a small paper bag of medicine against her chest, her thoughts still lingering on the doctor's words. Her mind was elsewhere, so she didn't notice the tall figure approaching from the opposite direction. Toan was walking beside Mai Huong, his steps measured but heavy, as if each one required an effort he could not explain. She clung to his arm with practiced intimacy, her laughter soft and sweet, curling around him like silk threads he could not break free from. Her voice was low, perfectly timed, each word chosen to keep his attention fixed on her. For one fleeting moment, their paths crossed. Just a few steps away, Diem lifted her gaze, only for it to slide past Toan without stopping. The distance between them was no more than a breath, yet it felt like a chasm. Neither saw the other, neither knew how close they had been. Mai Huong's eyes, however, flickered briefly in Diem's direction, and a small, almost imperceptible smile tugged at her lips. Her performance was flawless, subtle, layered, convincing. Even the faint tightening of her grip on Toan's arm seemed natural, as if she were afraid of losing him to some invisible force. Toan, oblivious to the silent drama playing out, followed her lead, his attention caught in the web she wove. He did not see Diem's shadow pass him by, nor the quiet fragility in her expression. And so, in the bright, busy hallway of the hospital, two hearts brushed past each other without knowing, while a third watched, satisfied that the distance between them had just grown a little wider. Diem stepped out of the hospital into the cool late afternoon air, letting the faint breeze wash over her face. For a moment, she simply stood there, her paper bag of medicine crinkling in her hands, as if the world had paused just enough to let her gather her breath. She didn't know why her chest felt heavier than it should. Perhaps it was the endless appointments, the long weeks of uncertainty, or the sense that life had been quietly moving in a direction she hadn't chosen. Vuong's text arrived just as she reached the bus stop. "I'm already nearby. Wait for me." She didn't argue. Truth be told, she was relieved not to travel home alone. When his familiar motorbike pulled up minutes later, he greeted her with a warm smile that asked no questions and expected no explanations. The ride back to his family's house was quiet, but not uncomfortably so. The wind tangled through her hair, carrying with it the faint scent of rain-soaked streets and blooming jasmine from roadside gardens. Vuong drove at a steady pace, occasionally glancing back to make sure she was comfortable, his kindness never loud or demanding, just steady, like the hum of the engine beneath them. When they arrived, his mother was already waiting at the gate. A petite woman with silver streaks in her hair and the kind of eyes that soften the moment they looked at you, she waved them in with genuine warmth. "Come in, come in. You must be tired," she said, ushering Diem into the house before she could even take her shoes off properly. The house smelled faintly of lemongrass and simmering broth. In the kitchen, a pot of soup bubbled gently, its steam curling into the air. Vuong's mother guided Diem to the dining table, her hands gentle but firm, as though she had decided from the moment they met that this young woman belonged here. "You're too thin," she remarked, ladling soup into a bowl. "Eat more, or I'll think Vuong isn't taking care of you properly." Diem laughed softly, the sound surprising even herself. It had been a long time since she had felt so instantly embraced, so completely welcomed without condition. She tried to protest that she didn't want to trouble anyone, but the older woman simply waved her hand dismissively and began placing dish after dish on the table: steamed fish, stir-fried vegetables, fresh herbs still beaded with water from washing. "You're like family here," the woman said, pulling out a chair for her. "So no more of this guest talk, Vuong sat opposite Diem, his expression relaxed but quietly watchful, as though he were making sure she truly felt at ease. He joined in their conversation only occasionally, letting his mother and Diem speak. She told them little snippets of her week, careful to keep certain details, certain heartaches, tucked away. And yet, in the warm glow of the kitchen light, those hidden things didn't feel as heavy. After dinner, Vuong's mother made tea, pouring it into small porcelain cups that looked as though they had been used for decades. She handed one to Diem, her hand brushing hers in a motherly gesture. "You have kind eyes," she said suddenly, almost as if thinking aloud. "Eyes that have seen pain but still choose to be gentle. I like that." The word struck Diem in a place she hadn't expected. She smiled, but there was a faint shimmer in her gaze as she looked down at her tea. She could feel the warmth of it seep into her palms, much like the warmth of this home was quietly seeping into her guarded heart. Later, when Vuong offered to show her to the guest room, his mother interjected with a laugh. "Guest room? She can take the room next to yours. It's warmer there." Diem hesitated, and used to such easy acceptance. But the older woman had already disappeared into the hallway, rummaging for fresh linens. Vuong simply gave her a small shrug and a smile as if to say, "It's just how she is." That night, lying in a bed that smelled faintly of lavender and sun-dried sheets, Diem stared at the ceiling, her mind drifting. This house was quiet, but it wasn't the heavy, suffocating kind of quiet she'd grown accustomed to in her own place. It was the quiet of safety, of voices in the kitchen, of footsteps in the hallway, of people who noticed if you didn't come home in time for dinner. Somewhere deep inside, a part of her began to ache. Not because she felt out of place, but because she felt like she was finally somewhere she could belong, and she knew that belonging was a dangerous thing when your heart was still tethered to someone who didn't see you anymore. In another part of the city, Toan was sitting at a dinner table of his own, surrounded by polished cutlery and practiced smiles. But here, in the warm, lived-in comfort of Vuong's home, Diem allowed herself, for just one evening, to set down the weight she carried. The sound of light rain began tapping against the window, mingling with the faint clinking of dishes being washed in the kitchen. Diem closed her eyes and let the soft rhythm lull her. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or how long she would be able to stay here. But tonight, she was warm. Tonight, she was safe. And for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel entirely alone. Across the city, Toan sat at a long mahogany dining table in Mai Huong's family home, the golden glow of chandeliers reflecting off polished glassware. The air was thick with the scent of roasted duck, ginger, and an unspoken expectation that pressed against his chest. Her parents, immaculately dressed, sat at the head of the table, their conversation flowing effortlessly into topics of career, family, and most notably, the future. "Such a relief to finally meet you properly, Toan," her father said, lifting his wine glass with a practiced smile. "Huong has told us so much. You're exactly the kind of man we've always hoped she would bring home." Toan returned the smile, though it felt tight at the edges. He murmured polite replies, his voice measured, careful, the kind of tone one uses when playing a role that has already been written for them. Mai Huong, seated beside him, leaned in with an air of easy possession, her hand lightly resting over his on the table. "See," she said sweetly to her parents. "I told you he'd be perfect here." Her gaze lingered on him just a fraction longer than necessary, as if silently daring him to disagree. The conversation turned toward wedding customs, houses, and family expectations. Her mother spoke of relatives who would be thrilled to attend, of how their families' names together would be stronger. Toan nodded at the appropriate moments, lifted his glass when prompted, even laughed when Huong told a light-hearted story about their supposed first date. But inside, his thoughts were drifting away from the sparkling silverware, away from the polished floors, toward a faint image he couldn't quite shake, the soft curve of a smile he hadn't seen in weeks, a voice that once could calm the noise in his mind. He didn't know that, earlier that very day, he had walked past her in a hospital hallway without a single glance. Huong's fingers tightened slightly on his, grounding him back into the conversation. "We'll have to take him to the countryside soon," she said to her parents. "So he can see where I grew up. It's important for him to understand our roots." Her mother beamed. "Yes, and maybe by then, we'll have an announcement to share." The room filled with laughter, and Toan joined in, though the sound felt strangely foreign to his own ears. Somewhere beneath the surface of his composure, an unease was taking root. He could not name it, not here, not now, but it was there, a quiet stirring that told him something in this picture-perfect evening didn't fit. When dessert arrived, a delicate bowl of lotus seed sweet soup, he thanked Hong's mother politely and took a sip. The sweetness was pleasant enough, but it sat heavily in his stomach. He glanced around the table, taking in the satisfied faces, the easy familiarity between them all. This was a world of certainty, of plans laid out neatly in advance. And yet, in the midst of it, he felt like a piece that had been placed in the wrong puzzle. Outside, rain tapped lightly against the large windows, the same rain that fell miles away against the small bedroom window where Diem lay. She was likely asleep by now, her breathing soft and even, safe in a home that welcomed her without question. He didn't know that she, too, was thinking of him, though less and less with each passing day. The evening drew to a close with polite farewells and promises of next time. As Hong's hand slid back into his on the way to the car, Toan allowed it, because refusing would cause ripples he wasn't ready to face. But in the quiet space between their joined hands, he could feel the growing distance, not just between him and Diem, but between the man he was now and the man he thought he would be. And so, without drama or sudden rupture, they drifted further apart, two lives quietly realigning, moving away from each other in small, almost invisible steps, until the distance became too wide to cross.